On December 27, 2008, Britain lost something millions thought would last forever. For nearly a century, Woolworths wasn't just a shop. It was where childhood memories were made. Every weekend, families walked through these doors. Children rushed straight to the famous pick and mix, carefully choosing sweets with their pocket money. Parents filled their baskets with toys, school supplies, Christmas decorations, and everyday essentials. No matter where you lived in Britain, chances were there was a Woolworths just around the corner. It wasn't simply a place to shop. It was part of everyday life. At its peak, it seemed impossible to imagine a British high street without it. But while customers were making memories, something was quietly going wrong behind the scenes, and almost nobody saw it coming. The story began in 1909, when the very first Woolworths store opened its doors in Liverpool. The idea was simple: offer everyday products at prices ordinary families could actually afford. It worked better than anyone imagined. Over the decades, Woolworths spread across Britain, becoming a familiar part of almost every high street. Generations grew up buying toys, records, stationery, sweets, and Christmas gifts under the same red sign. For many people, a trip to Woolworths wasn't planned. It was simply part of everyday life. By the 1980s, the company had become one of Britain's most recognizable retailers, serving millions of customers every single week. It looked unstoppable, but success can sometimes hide problems. While the stores remained busy and the shelves stayed full, the world outside was beginning to change, and Woolworths didn't realize that its biggest challenge had already arrived. By the late 1990s, Britain was changing faster than Woolworths could keep up. Powerful supermarkets like Tesco and Asda were selling many of the same products, often at lower prices and with far more choice. Specialist stores were taking customers in other categories. Woolworths slowly lost the one thing every successful business needs: a clear identity. Was it a toy shop, a music store, a sweet shop, or a general retailer? Even loyal customers weren't sure anymore. Sales began to fall. Costs continued to rise. Inside the company, warning signs became impossible to ignore. But instead of reinventing itself, Woolworths kept doing what it had always done, hoping things would somehow improve. They never did, and by 2008, the countdown to the end had already begun. In November 2008, the news finally arrived. Woolworths had entered administration. For thousands of employees, the future disappeared overnight. Across Britain, familiar stores were suddenly covered with bright red clearance signs. Customers rushed in for the final bargains, while staff quietly watched the shelves empty for the last time. For many workers, this wasn't just a job. It had been part of their lives for years. Every item sold brought the company one step closer to the end. Then came December 27, 2008. One by one, the doors closed. The lights were switched off. And after nearly a century on Britain's high streets, Woolworths was gone. Today, most people walk past these streets without ever knowing what once stood here. But for millions of Britons, Woolworths was never just another shop. It was where childhood began, where Christmas traditions were born, and where ordinary Saturdays became lifelong memories. The buildings may still exist, but the feeling they carried disappeared long ago. Perhaps that's why people still talk about Woolworths today. Not because it sold toys or sweets, but because it became part of their lives. And while Woolworths may be gone, it was only the beginning. Britain's high streets have lost many more icons, and each one has a story worth remembering.